everyone commits fraud. If you're, and not, I say that, and let me finish, but before everyone blows their gasket, like, oh, I don't commit fraud. And, I believe, and I think the data would probably prove that the majority of fraud committed is unintentional. It wasn't because someone tried to do it. It's because they didn't know the law. They didn't know the correct Minnesota statute. They didn't.
Behavioral Health Integrations podcast strives to inspire the next generation of mental health and addiction specialists. Our aim is to continue to raise awareness and encourage collaboration in the mental health and addiction industry so that it will continue to thrive. There are numerous approaches to treating mental health and substance abuse issues. On this show, we take pleasure in showcasing the diversity of these approaches used to improve the lives of others. So without further ado, your host, Jacob Menig.
Hello everyone, welcome to another awesome and amazing behavioral health integration episode. I'm super excited for this, and again, I just want to welcome Randy Anderson, and then Robert will be joining us as soon as he can. Unfortunately, Eric cannot be here. He is sick, so I wish him well. I hope he gets better. And yes, today we are doing treatment center fraud and kickbacks. I guess, Randy, do you want to do your intro? I know you love doing it. And
hey, Jacob, thanks for having me on. I think a very important and timely topic, of course. So it's happening. We all see the news and it's no secret anymore. But my name is Randy Anderson. I'm a person living in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is I haven't used any alcohol or drugs or mood-altering substance since January 9th, 2005. I celebrated 20 years here a couple weeks ago. I can't believe it. I always say if I don't put my recovery first, everything else comes last. Also, though, when I say 20 years, I chuckle a little because it does make me feel a tad bit old. And someone on one of my social media posts the other day put you're officially an old timer. I'm like, don't say but anyways, it's cool. I'm super grateful. I don't know where I'd be without my recovery. And so, I'm grateful every day for whatever the world throws at me.
Oh, man. Well, hey, congratulations. That's an amazing milestone. And regardless of age, I know you have much more gas in the tank, and I know you're going to be with us for a very long time in the recovery field. And again, this is a really awesome moment because I've never been so excited to do an episode in a very, very long time. And I know we're going to get into a lot of great stuff. And like I said, Robert should be joining us soon. So I know he's going to add in his great knowledge and experience. But just to start off, fraud and kickbacks. I really kind of want this episode to be about, obviously, professionals of private practice, individuals running a treatment center, peer recovery specialist services, just knowing the policies, the law, what's wrong, what's right, what are the right things to do in certain situations. So in the beginning, let's just keep it basic. What is fraud? What's is the basic definition of fraud and how it can relate to a treatment center?
Yeah. And I think it's also important to me, fraud is when you're charging or billing for a service that isn't provided in the way the law allows, or is not, or providing a service that maybe never occurred, and yet you're still charging for it. I think there's a lot of different kinds of fraud. I think today, too, we're going to probably for sure dive into. I also believe everyone commits fraud. If you're, and not, I say that, and let me finish, but before everyone blows their gasket, like, oh, I don't commit fraud. And, I believe, and I think the data would probably prove that the majority of fraud committed is unintentional. It wasn't because someone tried to do it. It's because they didn't know the law. They didn't know the correct Minnesota statute. They didn't sign the document right. They accidentally backdated something those. Like that happens. People do it. We're humans. We make mistakes. So I think it's important. We started this conversation is distinguish between intentional fraud and unintentional fraud.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, here's a huge example, and it's not the worst thing in the world. Let's say you're a counselor doing group, right? And one of your clients leaves group to go to the bathroom with their phone for 30 minutes, whatever. But yet a lot of them tend to get billed. Technically, that's fraud because they're not in group. They're in the bathroom dinking around on their phone.
Yeah.
Are we going to bash those treatment centers? No, because they'll figure out okay, that's not right. Let's tighten up our policies and our rules a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think even on that vein or note, you're doing a 3-hour group, some group participant gets called out because they got a phone call or someone showed up the building to see them, and you expect they're going to be gone for 5 or 10 minutes, no big deal, right? And all of a sudden, and you're running a group, right? So you have anywhere from 16 to 40 other participants in your group, right? And so one person leaves, you don't necessarily look at your watch and say, okay, they left, I'm going to time them. Like, you're busy. You have a number of other clients or participants to pay attention to. So, but they say, I'm only going to be gone 10 minutes. So you're like, okay, 10 minutes, we're not going to stress about, no big deal. And then they're gone an hour. And then you bill for that and then you forget the group, whatever happens, you're busy. And you now just committed fraud because if it had been 10 minutes, we can deal with that. Usually not a big deal. But if a person misses an hour of the group and you still bill for that hour, you've committed fraud. I believe that the counselor or the staff member did that intentionally? Absolutely not. Do they did it because they were just busy and we're humans and we can't remember everything? Yes. That's a good example of unintentional fraud, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and another huge issue in our, mental health addiction field is the situations where there's like an owner of a treatment center and then peer recovery specialists, because they appear right now to be on the front lines, because that's when a lot of the overbilling occurs, right? Is during peer recovery services. Yeah,
it is. It's happening. It's what we've seen in the news mostly are around peer recovery services. But also, I think that, and it's public, so we can absolutely mention, I think in the Evergreen story, not only did we see the abuse of those services being billed, but we also saw through that investigation, group billing. They showed the client talking about he was billed for while being in a group, and he was actually outside of the facility selling marijuana out front, right? So, so that's public knowledge. We're not saying anything we didn't see on TV and someone hasn't admitted to, or at least a client has told us about, right? So to me, that's it. I think what we're seeing, because it's easiest to find right now, is the peer recovery services, because it's easy to find. It's a new service. Peers are under a microscope. No one quite knows what they're supposed to be doing anyway. So I think it's an easy target. I don't think it's necessarily the only or the bulk of the fraud that's occurring in my opinion. It's just we've seen it because it's been on the news. I guarantee there's a lot of fraud we don't see that are occurring in treatment centers because they don't make the news every day, right? But with peer services, and I'm not going to lie, people are confused. Someone's talking about, patient brokering. Yeah, thank God. I feel really fortunate we don't get a lot of patient brokering in Minnesota, because we do have a system that prevents that in a way that's very difficult to do. But anyways, not to go down that rabbit hole.
I'm sorry, Diane.
Yeah, no, it's horrible.
I'm dead.
It's peer services. So, and I'm going to just quickly, hey, Sherry. Yes, Diane, that's horrible. I've lied, and I think we've all lost loved ones, and not to minimize anyone else's. Fortunately, and I guess maybe now is a good time to pause and just acknowledge that. I lost my sister to her addiction in November of 2020. I lost my mom to her results of her substance use in January of 2021. And then my stepdad died of a fentanyl overdose in September of 2021. So, and I think everyone has a story, and they're all tragic. And I think a lot of these substance related deaths are preventable. And we've just, here we go down this rabbit hole a little bit, but I think as a society and as a systems, we've failed a lot of people. And that's the truth. So anyways, acknowledging that is a real thing in our world today, of course, with still over 100,000 overdose deaths annually. We cannot forget. So, but I think the reason why we're seeing these peer services, and I'm just going to tell, and not to take up all the time, but for me, it started.
Brandon, you take all the time you want, man.
For me, it started in probably in 2022. I'm trying to think back. When maybe even a little before that, when Refocus Recovery came onto the scene, and Kairos came onto the scene, and it was this new tech company partnered with this nonprofit, and nobody kind of understood what that was or what that relationship was like and how it worked. And I don't think they even understood it, because I have friends that they approached to do business with, and when they tried asking questions or getting explanation, they never got a good answer or explanation either. So I don't think.
Are we going to get into kickbacks?
Well, and we can, yeah. I'm not that's a little bit more outside of my world, although we've had reports of that through the Evergreen and Refocus world. So, and they don't call it. I don't know, the word kickback wasn't thrown around, but it is a form of kickbacks. But so, anyways, I had started as soon as they came onto the scene. I had started getting friends of mine, and I'm very connected throughout not just Minnesota, but the United States. But in Minnesota, I had people started calling me and saying, "Hey, is it legal for my roommate at my sober home is a certified peer recovery specialist working for Refocus Recovery, and like we hang out together, and they're billing my insurance." I'm like, say that again, and I had to like I was shocked because I'd never heard anything like this before, and I said, well, you should report that to your insurance or report that to the sober homeowner or someone, right? I think a lot of people were really afraid to report anything early on because they feared that they would be retaliated against. They would lose their housing. They would be kicked out of treatment. They would be like all these things. And these examples kept coming. Another one, someone said, I'm in treatment. And one of my other people in treatment, another client, is also a certified peer recovery specialist in treatment, and they're billing for services. I'm like, how? Okay, hold on. Like what? So it was just some of the early stuff that started to come forward was so strange. It was hard to believe. And go ahead, Jacob. I see you want.
Well, okay. So the biggest one, and Randy, you're a pro at knowing this. Okay, what are the job responsibilities of peer recovery specialists? Because I think a lot of them get taken advantage of, like car rides, van rides. I know Evergreen. We all know. We saw the news that they'd bill for like 45 minutes for each client for a car ride,
or a 10-minute car ride.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that legal? So can you actually bill for a van ride?
Yeah. So to actually transportation. It can be a billable service for peer recovery specialists. However, here's the caveat: peer recovery services are provided as a one-to-one service. And so our question is, and I had this happen. A guy that went to go to work for Refocus Recovery. Yeah. He asked me what I thought, and I said, well, and then the question about like groups came up, and it was actually about going to a Twins game. And I said, so if I take 3 peers, like we spend a day together, we go like out to get something to, eat. And then we go to the Twins game, and then we maybe go out and do a little socializing after. I was told that like, if that's a 6-hour block and I'm spending with 3 people, I can bill each one for 2 hours. I said, oh, okay. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe in those 6 hours that you're providing a one-on-one service to any of those people? And they're like, well, of course not. I said, so there's the answer to your question. You've answered yourself. Like, there's no way you're providing a one-to-one service. Now, do I believe that a peer shouldn't take teach? We should be teaching and I like to call them in the peer world, I like to call them recoveries. They're not our clients, they're not our patients, they're our recoveries. But anyways, everybody calls them a different name. We do want to teach them how to be in high-risk situations and how to deal with that. So I don't believe that if you, as a one-to-one situation, occasionally take one of your recoveries as a CPRS, one of your recoveries to a Twins game or a Wild game or something, just to get them to like, what is it like to go to these places and not use substances or get drunk or whatever, right? I think it's very beneficial and it's good. And I don't see anything wrong with necessarily billing for something like that on an occasional basis. If it becomes the only means that you're providing services, like we're just going to the Twins games all the time, or we're going to whatever, or I'm just becoming their Uber driver, I'm going to the grocery store for them, I'm picking their kids up from daycare. Like now you're no longer, what services are you providing? You're not teaching them self-efficacy anymore. You're not. So it's so hard because I remember I was one of the original people that worked on in 2017, we formed a work group at DHS to make peer services reimbursable. And I thought this is a great idea. I thought, why shouldn't people get paid for the work they're doing? Right. Period. And then we also talked about, we want to make this so it's not restrictive for the peers. We don't want to bog them down in paperwork. We want to make this an easy thing, an easy service for them to deliver. So we made the rules very broad. Well, unfortunately, I guess we find out what happens when you make the rules too broad. You get people that find the loopholes or the gray area, and they exploit the crap out of it.
Yes,
which is what's happened, right?
It's the wild, wild west.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we had to come in, and last year I was on the work group that we created a whole bunch of new legislation around peer services. We still have more work to do, but I think what we did is we closed a bunch of those loopholes so people can't exploit them anymore. I always say we can't have nice things because people don't do the right thing. Period.
Oh God.
And because the laws, when we make laws, it's not because we're trying to prevent something normally. It's because something already happened that we're trying to prevent from happening again. Yes. They're never like preemptive. They're always reactive. So this is a great case. We've now had to create all these new peer laws around peer services because people couldn't do the right thing.
Yes.
And they'd exploited the loopholes. And so, so again, back to your question, do I think it's okay? Absolutely. If a CPRS is bringing a peer to a Twins game just to show them what it's like to be in a recovery hostile environment, because that's what a Twins game is.
Yeah.
It's not a recovery friendly environment, right?
Yep.
But so if they're there because you're going to show them how you can do this, show them support, maybe be a little bit of a at that point, maybe you're a little bit of a sober companion. I like that term for them, where you're just with them to show them you don't need to drink and you can, I don't know. I think it's a good idea. I don't have any issue with that. If you're driving them to a support group meeting because they don't have transportation, or if you're driving them to treatment, maybe but then we have to, as the peer, we're supposed to also teach our recoveries how to be self-sufficient.
Yes.
So if they're completely relying on you for all this stuff, you're never teaching them how to be self-sufficient. Yes. Then you're no longer there's no longer a service dimension to it. Now you're just friends hanging out together and because you're my friend hanging out together. And that's what it turned into in a lot of cases. I hate to say that, but that's exactly what it turned into.
Well,
they didn't encourage it. I shouldn't say that. They didn't discourage it. Right. And because they also got Kairos and Refocus were, if you look at it from a business perspective, it wasn't the worst business model because they deployed them all as 1099 independent contractors. Mm-hmm. And then all they had to say was, well, they're submitting their billing timesheets and we're just paying them. We are not responsible for what they're telling us service they provided. So it really gets them off the hook saying, this isn't us committing any fraud. It's the contractor. So we heard this as well. And so last year, we actually also created a bill that we banned certified peer recovery specialists cannot be classified as an independent contractor. Mm-hmm. So we had to make that a law because otherwise it just continued. So again, we had to close the loopholes. So Aunt Melissa wrote, the patient broker in Minnesota, people are taking Minnesota rather than brought in. At this point, we are seeing some kind of fraud and kickbacks in nearly every state, some landing state. Yeah, I would agree to that. Again, I know I'm not saying it doesn't happen in Minnesota, so don't believe me when I say that. I said I think because of our regulation and oversight we do have, it makes it more difficult. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of friends that work in other parts of the United States, and they work for big for-profit treatment centers, and they've tried to come to Minnesota, and they've been unsuccessful because of how hard it is to open a 245.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah. So right. I mean, I haven't gone down the private practice rabbit hole yet, which I want to someday. But I can't imagine how much you guys have gone through to get that going.
It's not nearly as bad as 245G.
Okay.
I'm telling you that right now.
Right.
It's not that bad.
Yeah. So again, and anyways, I kind of lost where we were at, but you asked the question, do I think it's okay? Yes, I think those, but not. So here's the part where we know it was being exploited as they were driving a van with 20 people in it. And to and from treatment, which was a 10 or 15 minute van ride. And then they were instructed to bill 45 minutes each for each person in the van and just put that on their timesheet, right? That they regardless. And then they would, even when they interviewed David Backus in that interview and they said, do you think can you provide one-to-one services in a group of people? And he's like, sure you can. I'm like,
he's like one-to-one.
I'm like, oh my God, you have lost your mind. But anyways,
Randy, we got a question for you. Actually, LinkedIn one. Can you talk more about the recovery meetings with peers? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so again, it's a bigger topic than I can probably address here. Now, do I think again it's okay to bring your recovery as a CPRS? Can you bring your recovery to a meeting? Absolutely. Now, do I think there's some boundary issues with if this is your home group? Do you want your recovery to be sitting in a meeting where you're trying to get help? Like, right, you're there for you. I know it gets dicey in small communities where there isn't a lot of meeting choice. Like, right, I get that. You have to navigate that. But are you going to disclose or be as open if you know that your recovery is in there or peers in there? Because so there's where it becomes really tricky. Now, I work a lot of people like from Wilmer and Montevideo area, and they talk about like what they do is they try to like if this meeting meets Tuesdays and Thursdays and it's the only meeting there's available. One of them goes on Tuesdays, one of them goes on Thursdays. That way they're not in the same meeting together. Now, if you get a new peer on your caseload and they want to explore or start to attend support group meetings and you're taking them to the meeting and even sitting with them through their first meeting or two to get to introduce them to the world of help, self-help, there's nothing wrong with that. However, again, we need to teach them. What's the saying? Give a man a fish and you feed him for one meal. Yep. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Yes. That's the same. In me, that's what peer services is all about. Is like we're not feeding them for one meal. We're teaching them so they can feed themselves the rest of their lives, right? Yes. So that's again. So I don't know. I hope that answers the question. But there's nothing wrong with taking them to a meeting to introduce them to that world. But also protect yourself. Like if it's your home group meeting, like set some boundaries. Say, hey, can we find you a different meeting than mine? So I'm not going to be as open to share honestly in that meeting if I know my recovery is sitting there, right? So I think that's where we need to be really careful. So
we got a lot of work to do from legislative level,
Yeah. So corrective instead of punitive actions will be taken to make this area recovery support and improve the integrity of our work. Yeah. So again, we're still working on a reactive state in the world, unfortunately, especially in the world of recovery support services or peer support services, because of all the fraud that has happened. Everyone is leery and gun shy. I guess that's maybe the best. So we're working in a place of like a trauma reaction, I would almost call it. We're all traumatized by what's happened. So I last year was very adamant about not even then when all that's happened is when I was on that work group team. Let's don't overregulate our peer world because then no one's going to want to do it. And we're going to make it too hard. And I think we may have overstepped a little bit already. I think we are after we show that we're okay. We're going to be able to dial it back. In fact, we've already talked about it this session, introducing because SAMHSA, thank you for introducing new language around, and CMS has approved it that peers can supervise peers. I think that's great. I think that's the only option, but it's a great option. I don't think we're going to limit that in Minnesota just because. But also, if you're letting peers supervise peers, that peer supervisor has to have an extra level of education, training, expertise, hours of work. Like there's all kinds of things that I think need to go into that. We have some of that. I don't think we have enough of that yet in Minnesota, but anyways, many are scared to even work in this field and billing. Yeah, I agree, Sherry. Yeah. It's because in fact, just today on my post on Facebook, we talked about there's a post, let peers supervise peers, and someone wrote, not only is it good practice, but it's required by their certificate until they upgrade to a reciprocal. Actually, in Minnesota, that's not true. Even if you're CPRSR, which is a reciprocal, you still can't legally supervise peers under the new statute. It has to be a LADC or a mental health practitioner. But that's what we're looking at changing that. Hopefully this session, if session ever gets rolling and everyone can play nice in the sandbox. We all know what's happening at the Capitol right now. And Supreme Court ruled last night that they ruled they have to get back together and do things the right way. So we'll see what happens. I'm not going to go down that. We could go down that rabbit hole because I do a lot of work at the Capitol.
Yeah.
Now, but again, I just kind of want to, Jake, I'm going to let you, I've been blabbering for forever here. If you have some more thoughts or questions, I also want to be mindful of that.
I want to piggyback off of what Sherry was saying earlier about the overregulation. That's like the biggest thing that I'm worried about is because of these recent treatment centers getting shut down, that I don't know, from like the state or whatever, there's going to be even more regulation. And I don't know, micromanagement, let's just say. And the thing that kind of just really pisses me off is that it's kind of a few bad apples ruin it for the rest of us, when reality, and the sad reality, a lot of treatment centers actually get shut down for doing the right thing. A lot of it is for financial reasons, like they cannot afford to stay open. And that's where I'm kind of struggling with, where it's just like, again, committing fraud is never the right thing to do or whatnot. But when you have all these treatment centers struggling to get money and stuff, we're animals in the corner, ready to pounce. It's just, we're struggling right now, and it's just, I don't know, it's really hard.
That's a great point to bring up, especially for really small providers who are just trying to just make ends meet, and
private practice too. Private
practice, right? I mean, it's not like the big providers, and I'm not going to throw any names out, but they making plenty of money and they can afford some of this stuff. And you look at their salaries of their leadership, and you're like, holy shit! You run a nonprofit treatment center, and you're making that much money? Alrighty then. Again, I'm not going to throw any names out there, but I think some of us may know who all those kinds of places are. But so. And again, I think you're right. I think a small provider is looking for any way to bring additional revenue stream into their organization so they can sustain and pay their staff well. And I think so. Sometimes it starts to get easy to cut a corner or to turn a blind eye this time because no big deal. This time I'll let it go. And then this time turns into 3 times and all of a sudden it just becomes standard practice, right? Because the money's coming in and you're like, oh, everyone's getting paid. We're expanding the program. And then you start to justify by saying, but look at all the good we're doing.
Or we're not evergreen or we're not making $30 million a year. So,
Yeah, it's so I think that happens. And I think that we can, and again, I want to also
Randy, can I ask you a question, Randy? Yeah. Do you think if we just had much higher reimbursement rates, there would be less fraud?
I was getting there. Oh, we've created this, like you just said, no one does it intentionally, right? But it starts to become, so it's the system that has put us in a position where we need, how are we going to make ends meet? And so if we had better reimbursement rates where we could get reimbursed at the rate of inflation and above, like normal businesses do. Yes. I think that would also help eliminate a lot of this fraud because now people they don't have a reason to look for to cut corners or for other avenues of funding. Yes. With peer services, we have a proposal in this year to go from $15 a unit to $28 a unit. That's almost doubling. However, if you talk to any organization that's providing peer services only, they will tell you that they're not sustaining. We actually, when we wrote the original legislation in 2017 and enacted in 2018, we knew that at that reimbursement rate, it wouldn't be enough for an organization to be solely funded by that service. We also said, though, we don't expect anyone to do that. That should be one source of revenue stream. However, I look at organizations now that are trying to do this right, such as Rise Up Recovery down in Hastings. Tiffany and Chad, they're a husband, wife, both in recovery, amazing human beings that just they love peer services. They want to do it right. They're struggling because the reimbursement rate isn't high enough to even help them get by. I believe if we had the right reimbursement rate, they would have a thriving business and they wouldn't worry about can I provide whatever service? Yes, I think that's a huge part to play is that we need to pay for our services better in Minnesota. That way I think it'll help eliminate some of the fraud.
I want to give Carmichael Finn a shout out. They had an article on LinkedIn, which was really good. And in the article, it explained that we need to start adapting the state-funded rate study. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
I looked at those numbers. Beautiful reimbursement rates. I would love to have those reimbursement rates.
Yep. No, Carmichael, she's amazing. She knows. I mean, her and I have had many conversations about this topic as well. And what is this one? Thank you for changing the supervisor stuff. I work at 240G, and LADC doesn't know much about CPRS. I'm a CPRS supervisor, so I help the peers along the LADC. Yes, thank you, whoever LinkedIn user that is. We are going to be changing it back. Hopefully, there's good support from lawmakers and DHS to allow peers to supervise peers as well as LADCs. But absolutely, you're right. So
we are hopping today. This is a popular episode. Hi, Melissa.
as where fraud in those humans are. Yeah. Yes, sometimes law hurts and small honest providers looking for any way that. Yep, I agree, Melissa. So I kind of want to go back to where I think this started for me too, where I never thought I'd be a person that was that concerned or in the realm of where we're at now. But when I started to get all those reports from the communities, they didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to go. There was no place to report this stuff. It didn't feel like it, at least, right? And if you report to DHS, it feels like nothing gets done, or you kind of feel like they're doing. I mean, I know you and I have talked about this earlier, but I believe a lot of this that we're seeing in the news could have easily been prevented by our overseeing government agencies. There are many authorities that we have in this state. I call it turning the spigot off. They can turn the spigot off. And they did till FBI got involved, then they did it. Exactly. They waited until it's too late, right? It's in the particular case, and I'm most familiar with Kairos and Refocus because that was something that I worked on very closely with 3 different reporters. Honestly, I've never said this publicly. I'm going to say it now. I first talked to Andy Steiner from MinPost, and she did a great article to start with. MinPost is a very small publication. They don't have investigators. Andy's great. She's done a lot of great stories in our behavioral health field. I love Andy. She wanted to make it a balanced, fair story. I don't believe in sometimes, but she did a great job. Like, I love Andy. That was my first, she reached out to me. She was hearing stuff. She wanted to know what was going on. I told her my 2 cents worth. And then I actually got hooked up with Chris Steiner from the Star Tribune. Now it's just called the Star, whatever their name is. But he was reporting in the behavioral health field for a long time. And I was working with him for a few months. And then all of a sudden he ghosted me. And I don't know what happened. I still today don't know what happened. Very shortly after that, he left the Star and went to work somewhere else. So I think it was a combination of someone got to him that knew that I was doing this, and also he was going on to other things. So, and then finally what happened is AJ Legault from Care 11, I got a text one day, random text on my phone in May of 2023, hey, this is AJ Legault from Care 11. Do you have time to meet? And I'm like, I didn't even, honestly, I love AJ now. I didn't know who he was. I had to Google him, and I'm like, oh God, this guy's an investigative reporter. And I started laughing. I'm thinking, there's no way he's calling me about Kairos and Refocus. No way. So I call him and I said, I'm kind of laughing. He goes, what's so funny? I said, I think I know why you're calling, but I'm kind of wondering. Yeah. And he goes, what do you think it is? I said, well, are you calling to ask me about Kairos and Refocus? He goes, I am. And I'm like, holy shit.
Bingo.
Yeah, so we ended up meeting I met with him and his one of his investigators and producer for about 2.5 hours one day. And I gave him everything that I had been given, because everything I had was from community members. I didn't make anything up. All the information I had was provided to me by other people. So I gave him everything I had. And then he said he would start investigating. He goes, Randy, I can't guarantee you anything. We'll do our due diligence. If we find something that we think's worth publishing, we'll publish. And of course, it took about 6 months, and their first story came out in December of 2023, and it all blew up from there. What most people don't know, and it's fine, I told AJ he could leave me out of the story completely. He put me in one little piece. They sued me. They filed a 63-page harassment restraining order.
What?
Yeah. And we had to go to court over because I was fighting it. I'm like, I don't. So we had a virtual court hearing that lasted about 3 hours one day, where we wanted to come to a mutual agreement. Well, we had a little bit of mediation that day, and their only thing that they wanted, they said, if I got any more reports from the community, that they would rather I went to them first versus reporting them to DHS or AG or what. And so I'm like, so you want me to tell you when people tell me you're doing something? So it's like the police policing the police again. I said, absolutely not. I won't do that. And so anyways, we were set to go to trial, a little trial on it. And 3 days before the trial, they dropped the order. And so they knew they were going to lose. So there was no way that if they went to trial, I would win. Yeah. Anyways, and then after that, they filed multiple cease and desist letters against me to tell me to stop. My lawyer just said, ignore it. As long as you're not saying anything that you haven't been just don't make up shit. Tell the truth. I'm like, well, that's pretty easy for me. So anyways, so I had a long history, unfortunately, with the whole Kairos Refocus thing. And even going back to before they started, when the Dan Larson, the guy that started it all, met with me and wanted me to help them do training and stuff. And I won't go down that rabbit hole. I had it was a 3.5 years of my life tied up. Yes. And then finally, after DHS decided enough was enough. They finally turned the spigot off and said, we're no longer going to let them bill for services. And then 2 weeks later, they were done. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then it's funny, along the way, so when he was investigating Kairos and Refocus, Evergreen's name kept coming up.
Yep.
So AJ said, what do you know about Evergreen? I said, I don't know. I hear stuff. We have everyone is hearing stuff. I'm not going to lie. Like,
I heard stuff from client. I heard even like when this actually got on the news, like I heard things from like clients. Obviously, you can't believe what the clients like say, but it's weird because some of it ended up being true.
It ended up being true. That's what's funny. AJ said to me, particularly about the Kairos and Refocus thing. He goes, Randy, you know, they sued you for all these things, 12 different things that you said you were lying about. He goes, we found every one of them to be true. And I said, yeah, I know. I mean, I figured that. But yeah, so while he was investigating Kairos and Refocus, Evergreen's name just kept coming up. So AJ decided to also at the same time start investigating them. And that's when he discovered all of the stuff happening there with him and I talk a lot, and he would like, you're not going to, about like that one story with the 208 hours in one day. Like when he told me that, I was like, that's not possible. He goes, Randy, I have proof of it. I'm like, what? How is DHS allowing this?
They got away with it though. They got away with it.
They did multiple times. There was a lot like that. That was just one instance. But AJ had credible, like the reports where one time there was 92 hours, one there was 140 hours, one there was like all in one day, one person. Yes. Anyway, so but
can I like, and I'm huge, like very passionate about this too. Like I'm like so disgusted with insurance companies. So I still think like Medicare and Medicaid fraud is a very serious thing. But when your treatment centers like making $30 million a year, I get so pissed off where, insurance fraud is like a close second. Cause number one, I am disgusted by the lives and the rapes and the deaths that occurred at those treatment centers. It's like, if you're going to make $30 million a year, keep your freaking clients safe, protect them at least. And they couldn't do that. That
more important was a $200,000 G-Wagon, several $1,000 handbags, private jets, Waldorf Astoria hotel stays. Like, I mean, it's a fun, nice, lavish lifestyle to live at the expense of tax dollar money and your clients, right? Yeah.
That is wrong.
What's up, Robert? I think that is Robert on here. Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, guys. So I know I'm coming late. I'm sorry. Oh,
okay.
Can you see me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know why I'm on my iPad, so I'm having an issue with the camera. Yeah. It's interesting. Before Kairos kind of became a big thing, one of my old clients from years ago that I had treated came back to me and wanted some ethical consultation because I did a program at Metro Safer Ethics, and he was from Kairos. He was working at Kairos. It was about Kairos. So I started hearing some of this stuff from him, just how he was being impacted on a daily basis. Yeah. And some of the guidance I had to give, it just seemed like this is basic 101.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that they're this big. What complicated it further was because I was a private practice and I was doing telehealth only, their model worked really well for me as far as like being able to refer somebody. They set up a system for that. And just kind of that telehealth and broad thinks all over the state. So it was this double-edged sword I was dealing with. But as those sessions continued to progress, and I did all the things like keep documentation, document it this way, I knew something was going to have to come sooner or later. Once DHS got in there and did an official audit or a couple, or it couldn't be that bad, right? So I wasn't surprised. I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised to see and hear everything that then came on the media. So I hear you. I get it. It's quite the.
Well, again, I think a lot of people, Robert, were two things, or maybe threefold. Mm-hmm. Is one, they were benefiting pretty well from what was happening with Kairos, and it wasn't really directly impacting them. So they're like, I don't care. My clients are getting served. I don't have to do the billing. I don't have to worry about it. So it was really like kind of putting the blinders on a little bit and just saying, it's okay. I don't. So I think, and I'm not faulting anyone for that necessarily. Like, I think it also was, and here's where we haven't even talked about yet. I did learn, and we don't have any actual evidence of this proof yet, but except for people told me that Kairos would say to them, hey, if you partner with us, we will pay you so much a month to refer people to us.
Wow.
So that's a kickback. That is illegal. And I know we haven't even touched on that topic yet, but that we also know that was happening for Kairos. So people, again, human beings see some dollar signs, and you will start to compromise our own morals and values because of that. So I think that's happening. And then I think it was some of the things we were getting told were so outlandish that it was hard to believe. Like, no, that's no one's doing that. That's not bullshit. Like, so I think that's the three things that I think of when what you talked about, Robert, is like, it was convenient. Well, I mean, I'm making money now. And then like, oh no, that can't possibly be happening. And of course we found out all of it to be true later, but
Kairos and Evergreen are just the only ones that got caught. Yeah, you're probably right, Cindy.
No, Cindy, I would agree. There are other investigations currently happening, which I'm not going to name names or, unfortunately, when I met AJ too back in December, well, he was about 6 months into it. He said, Randy, like, I'm going to be, and this was sad, but also made me chuckle. Like, I'm going to be working in your field for the next 5 years. I'm like, he goes, the amount of things that I'm learning or finding out are really disturbing. I'm like, yeah, I believe it. Yeah. You know what? I was talking to Senator Abler, who's a really good friend of mine, and when this all happened. And I said, you know what? It sucks that this is happening, and it's putting a really bad spotlight or giving us a black eye in the kind of the peer and the behavioral health field in Minnesota. But I'm okay with like riding out the bad times to get rid of the bad players. Like if this is what it takes to get the bad people out of the game, so be it. Like I'm okay with that. I hate it. I mean, I work all over the United States, and I have people constantly reaching out to me like, oh my God, Randy, your state's in the news every other day now. I said, I know, right? I said, but I'm starting to see this as like finally maybe doing a little house cleaning and getting rid of the old shit. Yes. So I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. Can I comment here? I agree. And Randy, by the way, so I'm the LADC supervisor now too, and I don't have enough to do for all the peers at Lighthouse.
Yeah.
And they have nothing but great things to say about your training. But anyways, I digress. I also participate in the DHS community auditing team over the last few years. And all these things, like it blows my mind. I go out to these sites and I tend to choose rural ones. Just how, we're reactive, not proactive.
Right.
That's what I'd like to say.
And I said that earlier too.
Yep. So they can get away with things for a long time if they want to. And it reminds me of this halfway house that I was called out to. And I only bring it up because a client somebody who might be coming my way is asked to be their house manager, and it brought up back all these memories. So I went out to this place out in Shakopee. So they were good at building sober houses, but they had nothing about treatment program, right? Yeah. Well, they needed a director, so I went out there to meet this guy. All they had was the 245G paperwork on the wall, one LADC, and they put everybody in their houses in this group. And I said, you can't do that. You can't. And no, I don't want to work for you. It's only a matter of time, right? So it's been traumatizing. And when Kairos closed down, Lighthouse became overwhelmed with job applicants, right? Yeah. And it's been interesting. And I've had to do a lot of work with a lot of them that have worked with Kairos because they were kind of used to being, they're 1099 independent, right? They're not used to having a boss and W-2. And that's been a hardship for some of them. But it's getting there. It's sad how it happened. It's sad that they chose to close down the way they did. Yeah. However, I will say this.
Yeah, it's there was. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Robert.
There was a loophole, right? Yeah. And the businesses took advantage of it. So really, it started with the legislature.
Right.
They should have been a little more careful. And this is going to be the case anytime we have new statutes. Right. When LADCs and private practice first came in online, we weren't doing fraudulent things, but lots of confusion and lots of unknowns, right? And it took time for them to get the language in the statutes, and it's like this is kind of similar, right? This is a new thing, and I think they fixed those problems on the legislature's level, and we're just going to wait for these things to shake out. Yeah. So I'm watching, and everything that Kairos did wrong, I'm making sure we're doing it right.
My friend from Minnesota Prevention Recovery Alliance, Tracy Anderson, and her team hired several Kairos people right after And I'm probably talking to Tracy weekly because she's like, Randy, it's harder to retrain these people versus if they would have just been trained right the first time. I said, of course it is. Like, it's hard to unlearn something once you've learned it, right? You have to learn something new. And so, yeah, that what you said about that is how the difficulty. She's been really hard for her. And then those when some of them continue to do the same things they were doing before, like one of my friends in Mankato called one day and said, wow, I guess I know who the new Kairos is. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, oh yeah, MNPRA is doing the same thing. I'm like, what? Tell me more. So I found out, and of course I called Tracy, and she got to the root of it right away and got rid of. She's had to fire several CPRSs because they just won't stop doing what they were doing before.
Yep.
And that's the way it goes. I mean, and I said this when they finally shut down, and who knows the exact number because Kairos lied a lot. We don't know. If there was 100 peers working for them, whatever, I'm going to say this is, and I'm just throwing random numbers out there. 50% of them. And that's probably maybe too high, but 50% of them, I believe, were probably doing good people trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
25% of them were bad people doing bad things. Yep. And then the other 25% probably shouldn't be working in the field. I mean, and it's no offense. I'm not trying to be mean, but right. I mean, when you're early in recovery and you're kind of that recovery bubble and you feel like I want to help. And then you see this carrot dangling from Kairos, like you can make this much money. You can hang out with your friends and Bill and go to baseball. Go to movies. Like, I think those people, they weren't cut out to be working as a CPRS, but they liked the way they were able to do it through Kairos.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree with all of that. And I see some of those themes, and it's been the most difficult thing. Yeah. And something as basic as like just show up for your hour supervision a month has been, at times it's getting better, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's been a challenge. Kairos created
they created a shit show and they love to brag about how many people they trained.
Saved.
But I saw one of the latest court documents was called the creditors list or one of the ones, but they had 286,000 client interactions that they were billed for or something.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm like, holy, no wonder they had $30 million. But anyways, I think we're going to have to weather the storm. I think there's going to be the fallout and whatever's still occurring. But I think there's enough good people around like Robert and myself and that want to see, we believe in the service. We believe there's value in the service and we want to make it right. Lighthouse is a great example of another organization. I talked to Ashley this week. I have a training. They're putting a bunch more people through another training of mine. There are really good organizations out there really doing the work and struggling to get by, though. Again, we go back to because the reimbursement rates are not there for them to survive. Right. And so anyways, we have a proposal in again, as I mentioned to Jacob before you got here, Robert, the legislation and I'm sure it's a shit show right now. And with the Supreme Court ruling yesterday, they're going to have to get their act back together and figure it out. And I've been down in the Capitol a couple times already this session. I had a really good meeting with some of the Human Services Committee members, and one of them, her kid's in recovery and her husband's in recovery, and she's a member of Al-Anon, and she wants to see it done right. So I think we have a lot of good allies at the Capitol that are also Luke Frederick, Dave Baker, Senator Hoffman, Abler. They're all about like, how can we do this and do it right? So I think we're in a good position there and they have trusted community members that they believe. I mean, I think my record speaks for itself. When they need something, they call me. Like, Randy, what do you think of this? And if I know, I give them my 2 cents worth. If I don't know, I said I don't know, but I can find someone that does, right? Yeah. So, but I also agree we're gonna have to fix this legislatively. It sucks that we have to have so many rules and regulations, and it's because people won't do the right thing. I mean, that's what it amounts to, is that we can't have nice things because people won't do the right thing.
Thank you for advocating for the recovery community. Nice.
Yeah. Sherry's great. I don't know if you know Sherry at all, Jacob. She's very active in the recovery.
Very
community.
Cool.
She helped start Recovery Cafe Frogtown. Now they're starting Recovery Cafe Anoka. Sherry's involved with that one. So Sherry's a really good community member that does a ton of work in the recovery space too. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, nice to meet you, Sherry. Well, the next thing I want to get to is actually kind of picking back what we're talking about. So let's just say hypothetically, because I know a lot of people who are watching this may be working at a treatment center that's maybe committing fraud or doing illegal things. So let's say if you are an LADC peer recovery specialist what is the best course of action? Do you go to the owner and director, be like, hey, this is fraud, stop it? Or do you bypass them and just report them or quit or whatnot? So what is your advice to the peer recovery specialist?
Oh gosh, I've been through so many different scenarios. I think depending upon who has the concern, right? I think good LEDC supervision is kind of where it generally starts. I think most issues can be resolved if they have a good supervisor. If not, DHS is always will help you to take a complaint, whether you do it anonymously or you do it not. And there have been times when I've worked out at treatment centers where things are so unethical, and I always try to go through the channels and give them the opportunity to do it right? But there's a point, and they don't do it right, and I'd report it,
Yeah.
So I think we kind of have to be you guys know, in our community, we have to safeguard each other, right? We have to protect the vulnerable adults, and the people in recovery, right? So we have to watch out for people that are doing it wrong. And if we see it, call it out.
Yeah.
Systematically, give them an opportunity to fix it. Make sure you understand what is actually going on before you make any accusations. Document well.
Yeah.
and then start going through the proper channels in the appropriate way. And usually most issues can get resolved. But if you guys only know what I see, and I just go out.
Well, I can imagine. I serve on the BBHT, and I'm on one of the complaint resolution committees, and so I have to field. Oh my God, really? Where in what world did you think that was a good idea?
Right.
Right. Thanks, Robert. I would add a little bit. I think Robert's great what he said. One thing we did last year, which I think was really important, and I don't think anyone or very few people know about, is we worked very closely with the Ombudsman Office for Mental Health.
Oh, sure.
And we said, can we have a place where a single place to report things, like if no matter what it might be? And so actually, in most cases now, you can report to the Ombudsman, Minnesota. I'm trying to get the title right. Minnesota Office of Ombudsman for Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities is the big long title. But they will take the complaint, and if they are not directly, it's not something they can directly handle, they will route it to the right division. We gave them a little extra funding last year, especially because most people didn't know. The biggest thing in the peer world was when a peer wants to report something, where do they report it? No one knew where to do that.
Yeah.
And there really was no place to report it other than MCB, which unfortunately they didn't have the teeth to do much investigating, which we actually gave them a little bit of funding last year. So when people file complaints about a CPRS, MCB has a little bit of money to do some investigating. I don't think it's enough. I think they need more. But I really think I love what we did with the Office of Ombudsman Office is they can be one location where you can submit just about any kind of complaint, and they will make sure or try their best to route it to the appropriate division. And I think that's a really important thing that we did last year that a lot of people don't know about. But I liked Robert. I think I'm a person that I like to go to the person first, if I see someone doing something wrong, I'm not afraid to say, hey, I don't know if that you should be doing that, right? Having that conversation first. And if that doesn't work, go to a supervisor. And if that doesn't work, go to the state. But the sad thing is, and I'm not going to get too bashy on government, the last 3 years through this Kairos thing, I can't tell you how many reports myself and others filed with the Attorney General's office, with the OIG, with DHS, with MCB about what Kairos and Refocus was doing, and it felt like it all fell on deaf ears. They could have stopped this. They could have stopped that at least a couple years earlier if they would have just listened. And from what I've been told by elected officials, legislators, is the OIG, the Attorney General, DHS, Medicaid Fraud Division, they all have the ability to turn the faucet off, and then they can say, we're going to pause the reimbursement pending the outcome of an investigation. So they have the ability to do that. And unfortunately, it seems like they never do it until after it's too late, or until $30 million in fraud or $250 million in fraud, or then they decide they're going to shut the spigot off after it's too late. So that's the part I get mad at government about, because they have a lot of power that they choose not to use.
Yes, and there's so many nuances to that.
Yeah.
For example, like some of these very rural clinics, right? You go out there and you clearly see that they haven't been in contact or reading or updating things in a long time yet, because they're so far out. They haven't gotten out in a while. And, you know, you want to give the opportunity to fix it, right? So you make the correction orders and see what they do. But on the other hand, I've also worked for a behavioral health clinic in the Brainerd, I shouldn't say it, a rural area where they were clearly blatantly doing things unethically. And, you know, I quit my job over the unethical issue and filed a complaint. And they ended up getting their program shut down, suspended for a year. It was a limited license. And I thought it was worth my job. But you know what they ended up doing? They just decided not to run the program for a year and wait out the limited license. And I thought, so nothing learned other than.
And unfortunately, we see that a lot, Robert, where they'll shut down. And I was actually, some of us were afraid of this with Kairos and Refocus. They would just shut off and then open up as a new company. And see, I think that's one reason why, and you said this earlier, why it's so important to get the legislative part done, is so they don't have the ability to just pop up as a new company, right? But anyways, so
it's like a roach that won't die.
Yeah. Right.
It says, FBI. Yep.
We did. And we reported. So I can tell you, I know I did, and I know at least 2 other people that reported Kairos and Refocus to the AG's office, to DHS, Office of Inspector General, FBI, Medicaid fraud. Like I can name like 5 or 6 different government entities that reports were filed with. And it still took them 3 years and tens of millions of dollars later to shut them down.
Okay, can we hang on? That's beautiful that we're getting this, because that's my next question. Yeah. So hypothetically, let's say, not even hypothetically, because this happened.
Yeah.
You were a treatment director at some of these facilities, treatment centers that got shut down. So hypothetically, if you, let's just say, saw some messed up stuff, illegal stuff, but just wanted to quit and get out of it, but did not report it, do we feel like those individuals should be punished in some way for not reporting it, but just getting out?
Yeah, so there's a couple sayings that come to mind for me. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And that's the one, and I think that's the main one, actually, because just because you don't know it's a law doesn't mean, and you violate or know someone's breaking, doesn't mean you have a responsibility. So, God, it's like, it should be kind of be a case by case. But if you know, especially someone at that level of leadership, you're a treatment director or a program director or a clinical director, and you know something's going on, and instead of doing anything about it, you just leave quietly. Like that's unethical. Like, to me, it's not technically illegal, right? But I certainly think it's unethical, because part of our oath we take, if you read your ethics from your LADC or your LPC license or your we are responsible for not turning a blind eye. And I don't know, I'm not going to try to pretend when I remember what the wording it is, but it's like a doctor takes an oath, do no harm, right? Same thing, right? I think that if you're in that level, in that position, and you just, I'm going to just quit and not worry about it, that's not okay. You should report it.
We always have the saying at treatment centers with the clients, if you see something, don't say anything. If you're not a part of the problem, or if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
100%. Yeah. If even we could go the don't ask, don't tell policies, right? We know how those worked out, right? They hurt more people than they helped. Anyways, it just unfortunately takes forever. In the meantime, we just open under a new name. That one's taken down, just open up. It happens all the time, and it's sad. I feel fortunate in Minnesota because we do have such a regulated, although I don't think they do a good enough job with oversight, but we have a very regulated industry. It's harder for what we're seeing in Florida and California and other parts of the country. We don't have nearly the problem they have because we're so regulated. But do I believe we need better oversight? Absolutely. We need to be holding these people and organizations accountable when they do things wrong, but we need to try to prevent it, I think. And I'm honestly, we're seeing a lot of new laws being introduced this year by both Democrats and Republicans at the Capitol to try to prevent fraud. And I think that's where we really need to do a better job, not finding out when it's millions of dollars later, but preventing it before it even happens.
All right, Brian. Hey, Brian.
Report. I agree. I mean, I think I think you're right. And what's funny, when I first got into this field as my LADC, my supervisor said, my job is not to investigate. My job is to only report. If I see something that I think is wrong or illegal or unethical, I am to report it. I'm not, my job is not to investigate it. And I have always remembered that. Like, and we say goofy things. When I went to treatment, we used to say to our clients, like, and all checkouts are valid, right?
Yeah.
And if we check it out and there's nothing wrong or nothing happened, nothing, so what, right? But if we check it out and there is something wrong, then we did the right. But so I completely agree that like all checkouts are valid, and my job is to report, not to investigate.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Yeah, and I just want to introduce a couple more topics where, again, if you're working at a treatment center and they're doing these things, these may be considered red flags. And I got a list, but some of the big ones, and Randy, I'm sure you can relate to this. Again, a lot of treatment centers will do unethical things when it comes to, like, first, providing money for sober living based on treatment hours and attendance. Oh boy.
Yeah. So we're going to see huge changes around this here coming in the next year or two. I remember sitting in my first government affairs committee meeting at March 9 years ago. Oh. And they started talking, this topic came up at that meeting. Yep. And I said, and this is when the Florida shuffle and all the stuff in California was happening. And I said this because I was really green, brand new to the field, brand new to advocacy. I said, this sounds like patient brokering to me. And oh my God, some of those people in the room looked at me like I had just killed their kid, because they were so offended that I would even suggest that this was patient brokering. I'm sorry. If you're incentivizing someone to participate in your programming through funding or housing or air or plane rides or whatever it is, like, that's a kickback, period. But I think and DHS will even admit this, they said it's been going on for so long, and it seems, and like, we're just kind of going to let it go. We're going to let it happen. And then unfortunately, what we saw and what we're seeing is the evergreen fallout, like that they were paying themselves through Medicaid funding to have people in their housing, and then not even providing good housing. Like, these were trap houses. I had friends that went there to try to help these people, and there was sex work happening. There were open drug dealing, open drug use. There was nothing about that was a sober, supportive. I mean, I don't even have to use those words sober. If we take away just a supportive housing model, it wasn't that, right? Mm-hmm. For a few years now, we've been talking about this. I think most of us will agree that we want our clients, our patients, to have good, adequate housing, because how can you expect them to participate in treatment if they don't know where they're going to live, right? Like, it's just not possible. So, but the part I think that we started talking about this a number of years ago, we should have a separate pool of money, like a voucher, right? A housing voucher program, where if you want to go to treatment, you can go wherever you want, and you get this housing voucher, and that voucher is accepted at these 30 homes or whatever, right? And you get to pick which home you go to. I think we're going to see something along those lines eventually, where you're not tied to a particular program because of the house you live in or the recovery residence you live in. So, but I think it's a huge problem. Obviously, it's a huge problem. I think, and I think the one that, we all know, the big one that uses this the most, I think this is they're gonna have the most navigating to do. I'm not going to name names, but I think we all know which is the biggest one at least in the metro area, that uses the recovery residence model. I think they're going to have to figure something else out. We're curious. We thought this year we would see in the governor's budget some of that last year's anti-kickback legislation language, and it wasn't in the governor's budget yet this year. And so I know Brian Zerbees from March is meeting with DHS and the governor's office to ask where they're at with the anti-kickback legislation, because it was introduced 2 years ago and it's never gotten anywhere. It's not, just kind of stalled out every year. This year, I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see some movement on it, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just funny because I hear horror stories when you're talking about, like, California, where, and again, God, I don't know who these people are, but they would find, as an example, homeless people on the street and grab them and be like, hey, do you have health insurance? Yeah. Okay, let's go to treatment. And forcing them against their will to go to treatment when they didn't even ask for it, to again get money, obviously.
Well, and then the worst part, Jacob, they get them in treatment, they do their 28 days, milk their insurance company for all it's worth, put them in a sober home that they owned and operated, and then give them drugs and get them to relapse, and then put them back in treatment, the same program again, to do another 28 days. And they would do that. The Florida shuffle, or what it was called, and they would do that until they ran out of insurance money, and hopefully a lot of times they'd end up dying in the process, because they would just overdose and die. But they would milk every penny they had and then they're going to kick them out saying, well, we can't keep anymore because your insurance isn't covering it anymore. And that, unfortunately, that's still happening, not at the level we saw before, but it's still happening in some states.
Yeah. That's just it. That's demonic right there. I swear to God, that's demonic.
Anyone, if you guys want to see, if you haven't seen the movie called Body Brokers, watch it. That is actually based on actual events that happen in California. It's a movie done about that shuffling. It's disgusting, but it's based on actual events. It's called Body Brokers. You got to watch. Yeah.
Can I get on Amazon? Is it on Amazon?
I think so. I don't remember. I saw it on Netflix, I think, but
okay.
But yeah, it's you can Google it. It comes up. Body Brokers. It's exactly what they were doing in California and Florida. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also just treatment centers keeping clients for over a year when they don't need to be, and then just making up reasons for them to stay. Again, it's all about the money. It's the root of all evil. I know that's like a very common thing to say, but I feel like that's what it is, though.
Welcome to a capitalist society.
Yeah.
Capitalism can destroy just about anything.
Yep.
Yeah, it takes a strong ethical and value system of an organization, right? Yep. So I just want to plug this for a second. So being an LADC in private practice, when I first started, I felt this pressure to get people done in 90 days. Yeah. And I felt this pressure to make sure they did well and put it all on myself. It took me about a year before I asked myself, where in the world did that come from? Right. Well, it came from my internships at a 245G program. It came from all the other programs I worked for. Yeah. And then I thought, but I'm not a program. I provide services. Mm-hmm. So why am I doing that, right? And what I found is a really good integrated assessment. You can figure out pretty quick, like, okay, has this person really been doing well and they're stable on methadone? Maybe they didn't finish something so they can get them done in 90 days. Or are they just starting their journey and it's going to take time to build that therapeutic alliance? Yeah. And we're just going to do the minimum ASAM IOP criteria so they can have a life. Yeah. And then as they start to slow that down, we'll pick up the psychotherapy piece and continue on with them. And then I get people that stay with me over a year, but not for that whole time programming, 9-10 hours a week. Right. People have lives. Outpatient is supposed to, go ahead.
No, I said, yeah, right. I said, and it's funny, when I was taught, like, I feel like I had really good instructors in college, but I remember them, we were taught things like, we need to start them at the least restrictive level of care, not the highest level of care, the least restrictive level of care. And that way, again, we always have the ability to raise their level of care, right? Yeah. But if we start them at the highest, where do we go from there, right? But so I don't know. And what you said, Robert, really rings true to me. People have lives, right? And I try to, even when I was just doing assessments for a while, I tried to keep that in mind. We start them at the least restrictive level of care possible to meet their needs. And we can always refer them to a higher level of care. That's not an issue, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even with the higher level of care, I'm sorry, I just got to plug this a little bit. Even with the higher level of care, I tell my clients all the time, chronic relapsing disease, right? So if you relapse, I'd much rather have an honest relationship with you than you take off on me for 10 days because you're scared because every time somebody has a UA in group, I confront them. Not necessary. Right. We have to learn how to live with the disease and manage it. And when it flares up as a symptom, how fast can we get that get back on track? Right, is a direct correlation of the work that they're doing with you. And that's been challenging at times with some legal collaterals, but they're legal collaterals. They're not the clinicians. And sometimes I have to remind them of that.
Yeah, no, so true, Robert, that when a person returns to use and their symptoms of their disease show up, that's when, I know not everyone, that's when a lot of places now want to kick them out and not give them services when they actually need more services, right? And I do it when I train peers. I talk about this all the time. We're the only disease model that when their symptoms return, we give them less services. Unlike like cancer, when you're cancer, your symptoms return, we give them more services. In the treatment world, when their symptoms return, we give them less services. Like it's insane. It's gotten a lot better. Don't get me wrong, but but there's still a lot of places that when someone returns to use, we looked at as like, oh, we need to kick them out, or they're not. I hate the term like, oh, they're not ready. Like, right?
Yes.
Bullshit.
Yes.
Or they haven't hit rock bottom yet.
It's not their time.
Yeah. To me, those are death sentences. All of those sayings are death sentences.
Which really means that you as the counselor needs to brush up on your motivational interviewing.
Correct.
Do your work.
Right. It's the same thing. We say that so when a person goes to the doctor, they discover they have cancer, they do biopsies and they find out what kind of cancer, and they send that person to that particular treatment that matches their cancer, right?
Yep.
In the treatment world, so when a person shows up and they don't match the treatment modality, we kick them out and say they weren't ready. Instead, because we don't match the individual their needs to the treatment program, we expect the individual to meet the needs of the treatment program. I mean, it's just so backwards to me. But again, it's getting better. We're a long ways from getting where we actually match the treatment to the individual versus the individual to the treatment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It is getting better. You're right. And I think with the ASAM changes that helps. Yeah.
Cindy, the beauty of 1.0 with peer sport is a good way to help long-term recovery.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys know Kathy Harbaugh. She's done a lot of work around the state, helped start some programs. She runs a program, and I can't remember. It's north somewhere, Grand Rapids. I don't remember what exactly, but she has like different levels, and oftentimes she'll keep someone at a 0.5 level of care, which is low, just so she can continue to provide them peer services.
Wait, what's 0.5? Like one group a week?
Not even that. It's as needed. It's I don't remember. I have to brush up on my ASAM. I haven't had to use it in a while, so I don't remember. But it's like as needed, deemed necessary by the client. Like it's a really low level of care. But however, you're not severing the service agreement, so you don't have to discharge them, and you can still provide them at least at the very minimal peer services. Kathy Harbaugh has been doing that. I've had a few conversations with her, and I think that's a great model. I don't know why programs are so quick to discharge someone instead of maybe moving them to the lowest ASAM level and just keeping them engaged for as long as possible, right? Yeah.
Well, I can speak to one program in particular, and now that you told me that, I'm going to call them after this.
Nice.
That's way out in rural. And this was a question. They didn't even know that they could provide peer recovery services, and I did do a little more digging. And but the question was, but that's the thing, can they after treatment? And they really needed like some updating. So that makes sense to me. 0.5.
ASAM 0.5, it says the early intervention level of care for substance use disorder. It's for people who are at risk of developing a substance use disorder or don't have enough information to diagnose a substance use disorder. But literally, it's like someone's who at risk of developing it. So I would look at it, if I look at it from a medical model, their substance use disorder has in remission, but they're still at risk of developing substance, right? So anyways, I think it's a great, Kathy's doing that, and it's a great, she's really found success in that. So
in 2022, private equity owned 7.1% of substance abuse agencies in the U.S. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's so I know what he's talking about. So one of the big ones, and again, so there's a private equity company owns Ascend Recovery, I think is the correct name.
Oh, I used to work for them.
And they own centers in Minnesota. I'm not going to say which ones, but they're all over the country. Meridian is owned. I'm just going to say, because why not? Meridian is owned by Ascend. I think they're is known, and they're a private equity company. Yeah,
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyways, I got a run, guys.
Okay.
Today, so I don't know what more I can add, but if you and Robert want to continue, you're welcome to. But it's up to you guys. So.
No, this was amazing. I had so much fun with you guys. We definitely got to do this again. This was awesome. Yeah. Well. Okay. One more. Why wasn't ASAM 0.5 included in the approved ASAM levels of care? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I thought it was, but I'll have to. Again, I've been out of the treatment realm for a minute, so I haven't been following that legislation close. But I don't know. I'll have to look into it.
Great question.
Ryan Tracy.
Yes, they. Melissa brings that up. They ran. I can't remember the name of the center. He had a big one in Florida that got shut down for patient brokering. But yeah, I know who that is.
Well, as we close things down, God, again, this was a blast. I had so much fun with you guys. Just right off the bat, just starting off with Randy, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a website, boldnorthrecoveryandconsulting.com, kind of a stupid long website. You can just Google search Bold North Recovery. And obviously I've done enough. I learned enough about SEO and all that stuff. I show up on a Google search. So anyways, Bold North Recovery. Email is info@boldnorthrecovery.com. But I think the easiest way is just either email me or through the website. Pretty easy to find. You can probably just Google Randy Anderson, Minnesota, and you'll see the numerous news articles about me, but because I've done a lot of media stuff, but I'm a pretty easy guy to locate. So I'm on all the social platforms, but yeah, I'm not hard to find.
All right. Robert, how can someone get a hold of you?
Well, I kind of feel like I don't deserve this because I keep I'm sorry, technology. So easiest way probably is email, or website works too, but email is randrews@soul, SOUL, savvy, SAV, Victor, y.biz, not .com, or same website address, soulsavvy.biz.
All right.
Cool.
Well, again, gentlemen, thank you so much. I had a blast. It was an honor.
Yeah, it was great. Again, I look forward to doing another time, because there's plenty to talk about in our field. I know for a fact there's some more, potentially, I'm going to say it that way to keep myself out of legal problems, more news stories coming out, unfortunately. So watch the news, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more to talk about. So,
amen.
Great.
Amen. Thank you.
All right.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
I again want to give a special thanks to Robert and Randy for another awesome and amazing behavioral health integration episode.
I just want to thank all of my listeners for your support, and just to inform everyone that the information expressed in this episode was not meant to be taken as therapeutic advice. If you do find yourself struggling with any type of mental health or addiction issues, please seek the care of a medical doctor or a licensed mental health therapist. And if anyone has any further questions for me, you can reach me at my email address, behaviorhealthintegration121@gmail.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Jacob Menig, where you will find more educational posts on psychotherapy, trauma, and addiction. And finally, you can follow me on my website, which is behaviorhealthintegration.org. I also want to inform everyone that there is a great new device out there called CalmiGo. It's a breathing device meant to control and manage your breathing rates and the depth of your breathing as you inhale and exhale to, again, help relieve any type of anxiety and stress-like symptoms. And if you do put the BHI podcast into the promo code, you get $30 off this amazing device. It is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, and you will not be disappointed. All right, everyone, until next time, have a good day. Bye.
I again want to give a special thanks to Robert and Randy for another awesome and amazing behavioral health integration episode.